Preparing, preparing, setting up. Okay, looks like we're live, Ben.
We are live. All
Hello.
right.
Yep.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Virtual Coffee with Ben. My name is Ben Blackman. I'm the Director of Development for Ridge Royal Innovation Design Group, which is a group of innovation consultants based in St. Petersburg, Florida. I hope everyone out there is doing well. Before we get started, I'd like again to encourage everyone to subscribe to our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, hit the like button, and share the content. Virtual Coffee with Ben is a web series that focuses on how companies can innovate, strategically plan for the future, and create a strong culture for their employees. Joining me today is Michelle Royal, the founder and chief innovation officer for Ridge. We have Joran Oppeld as well. He's the director of creativity and innovation for Ridge. He's also helping to run the show here. Good morning to both of you guys. Hope you're doing
Good
well.
morning.
Morning.
Great. Well, our discussion over the past few weeks is really centered around how businesses are dealing with the global pandemic. Talked a lot about business strategy. We've talked about internal and external communications. We've talked a lot about employee engagement as well. Today, I really wanted to focus on the tools, the specific tools that leaders can use to improve these areas of the business. Now, I'm sure that most companies out there right now have some sort of video conferencing already set up. Zoom has been really, really popular. We know that there are others like GoToMeeting and Microsoft Team, Google Hangouts. However, I wanted to talk about tools that can take those meetings to the next level. And internally at Ridge, we started to utilize a tool called Mural, which is essentially a digital whiteboard that allows teams to collaborate with each other. And we love this tool so much that we decided that we're actually going to develop a service called V-Suite. It's a virtual consulting program in which we can help facilitate meetings for our clients in a virtual setting. And so, Michelle, I really wanted to ask you, in general, why do you think it's important to have additional tools aside from just a Zoom or a GoToMeeting?
Thanks, Ben. Great question. The reason why it's important to have tools other than Zoom, first off, is that we are in the business of optimizing the greatest computer that every business has, which is the minds of its talent and employees and executives. And what we find with Zoom meetings is that they can be very similar to just showing up in an office and not really having a strategy for a specific meeting, but just meeting for meeting's sake. And especially whenever this pandemic crisis started and everyone converted to Zoom and said, okay, well, we're just going to be able to run everything virtually. The response we heard from companies was, we have Zoom, we have it covered. And immediately, what happened was almost an extension of, or an expansion of, the kind of fatigue that happens in poorly run meetings in face-to-face companies. And so Zoom actually amplified that. And what ended up happening, what we heard, the feedback that we heard from executive peers and clients, as well as companies around the world, was that there was a fatigue that started happening. There was a fatigue from not having an agenda or not having the ability to really see the work that was being done, the thinking work, or even the communication work that was being done during a meeting. And in our research, we found that there are really 3 different reasons why people have a meeting. You're there to review either some research or information, you're there to make decisions, or you're there to plan or brainstorm. So like brainstorming or prototyping or working on something together is the kind of planning or working session that you would have in a meeting. And what ended up happening instead with all of these Zoom meetings alone was that people were just having conversations. Executives and team members were just having conversations, and they weren't really getting to the work of business. And not only that, but there was an exponential amount, because you could meet in person via Zoom. every meeting became a Zoom meeting. So something that could have been a phone call or an email. Okay. So you see all these memes. I could have sat through this hour-long meeting in a 5-minute email, in a well-constructed 5-minute email, or you walk out of the meeting not knowing really what the purpose of it was, or even why you had to sit there. It perpetuates all these bad behaviors, like like eating during the meeting, or being on your phone during the meeting, or checking email and having multiple browsers up because you're just trying to get the productivity in as an individual while someone else is basically on the call, forcing you to be face to face. So it caused a tremendous amount of fatigue, which further expounded this whole lack of productivity overall. So the reason why you need other tools is, first of all, it makes you think about why you're having the meeting in the first place, makes you prepare to make sure that it's as effective as possible. And it also makes you kind of consider, is this really something that needs to happen virtually, in person, in a room together? Or is this something that could just happen through a call or an email?
And Joran, once we decided that there was a need for another platform, you kind of spearheaded the search for what tool is that going to be. I'm curious how you ended up deciding that Mural was the one that was going to be the most effective for virtual facilitation.
Sure, sure. Thanks. I think it was pretty clear from the beginning for us that our some of our colleagues were already using it. There are other options like Miro, which is Miro, which one of the main distinctions there is that the canvas is kind of limitless. There's no boundary to it. You can just keep going and going and going. But Mural provides a nice container. As Michelle said, it's like you Zoom. Some people say, you ask somebody, what's your communication plan? And they're like, we're set. We have a conference room. But what's on the walls in that conference room? What is the agenda that you're going to run once you get in the conference room? That's where this other layer of tools kind of comes into play, and strong facilitation, or I should say, skilled facilitation, comes into play. Once you get the people that need to be in the room in the room. Mural has a really robust support system as well. We've got a really great YouTube channel. Like I said, some of our friends and colleagues were already using it. It was kind of a no-brainer. It is a very, as much of a Swiss Army knife as it is, and we've used it for many things, even internally. It is a very specific tool. It is a very specific facilitation tool and documentation tool. There are other tools out there. Like if you just need to document your agendas and have your facilitations run kind of programmatically and in a library, and pulling from best practices and exercises. There's things like Session Lab. If there are tools, if you're running a lot of voting, or I'm going to say interaction with the participants, there are things like Mentimeter, or there's just like there's other software out there, but for facilitation, Mural is clearly kind of the catch-all. So it was, and again, there's things that kind of didn't survive. We're in the middle of writing a book about. Michelle and I are in the middle of co-authoring this book about how to run meetings, and actually, the software that we chose to include in the book on how to do virtual meetings isn't around anymore. It dried up. It went away.
Yeah.
So Mural was kind of next in line, and like I said, some of the industry leaders and colleagues we work with already had it as part of their toolbox.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. I will say too, as someone who's used it, it does do a good job of kind of replicating what an in-person meeting would be like. If you're just joining us, you're watching Virtual Coffee with Ben. I'm Ben Blackman, Director of Development with Ridge. I'm joined by Michelle Royal, our founder and Chief Innovation Officer. We have Joran Oppelt as well, Director of Creativity and Innovation. If you like what you're hearing, click the like and subscribe buttons on Facebook and YouTube. Stay tuned for more conversations like this. We're having them every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern. We're talking about all kinds of things. Today, we're really focused on the V-Suite, which is a new offering. It's a virtual consulting program that we've put together. It focuses on problem solving, innovating, and really aligning teams in a dynamic and fun way. We've talked about one of the tools that we're using to do that, which is Mural. It's a digital whiteboard. Joran was just talking about kind of why he chose Mural, but I wanted to open this up for both Joran and Michelle. You guys have facilitated meetings now using Mural with some of our clients. They really rave about the interactivity, the engagement of their teams, but I'm curious, just how has this opened things up for you? What feedback are you hearing from our clients? What's the biggest difference that it's made having this as part of your arsenal?
Yeah, well, so this week we were working with a client on their reentry plan. So it was a medical practice, a dental practice that that was able to open its doors, and we had 3 meetings total out of that process. We had one meeting which was just a Zoom meeting. The second meeting was an in-person meeting at their office. Don't worry, less than 10 people, 6 feet apart. We had social distancing practices as they were examining how they were going to open up their office. And then the third meeting in consecutive order of that was the all hands team meeting in which we utilized the Mural tools. And both from a team perspective, an experience perspective, and an output perspective, the results were exponential for the Mural meeting. The way that we described it is that when you're setting up for a really robust 3-hour meeting in person with your entire team or your entire company, it can take anywhere from 20 to 40 hours to do that really well in person. And that's true. So what was the juxtaposition of the two between the in-person meeting and the online meeting, which were one day and then the next day? The in-person meeting, we had all the physical tools that we use in that you would have on a Mural board. You had your whiteboards in which you were using Post-its and people were putting Post-its up. Holy cow, the disruptions that happened as a result of that and the distractions that happened as a result of that were massive, because they had people coming into the office that were doing construction work, trying to change some of the layout of the space. And so that meeting in and of itself was a challenge. And then there were all of these paper assets that needed to be translated. And so it was just really, really time intensive and labor intensive. Let's just say physically labor intensive. And that's part of the nature of the work that we do and part of the nature of the innovation work that we do. And so when we went into the Mural session, where it was a single board where 10 people were able to come together, a 3-hour meeting, actually, because they became so proficient in the tools and were given the quiet thinking time uninterrupted to make their contribution and their plans, that that 3-hour meeting ended up ending 20 minutes early. So we increased the productivity of that meeting and the clarity of that meeting. They immediately were able to voice all of their concerns and opinions. We were able to address all of the challenges and concerns during it extremely quickly. And so I couldn't imagine having those 10 people in a room and it not lasting an hour longer overall. So the differences are that a well-constructed virtual meeting with a team of individuals supporting it, you're able to handle and manage all of the chaos that happens in a contained space almost even more efficiently. And so that's been some of the big insights. But the point is that when we first started this whole process 8 weeks ago, and even before, because as Joran mentioned, we've been exploring tools for a long time, because our primary question is, how can we be the ultimate virtual source of business growth, with letting innovation be the fuel for that? And we started that process over 2 years ago. So when COVID hit, we were built for this at the end of the day. What we realized, though, is that when you do it digital to begin with, it's already done. It's already done. So when we have the analog meeting and we were face to face, we know that there's a time and place for that. There's a time and place, because you've got to physically prototype, you've got to physically put some things together, you have to see something together and really orient yourselves around. Like we had to be in the office space, for example, to be able to see those things. There is a process of work effort that goes into it and out of it that sort of expands the work effort overall. When it comes to aligning a team around decisions and action plans, though, when it's done digitally from the start, it's already done. They were ready to go straight into opening their doors and working with clients by 1 o'clock. They'd done a lot of planning, but they were able to straight open their doors and serve clients within an hour and a half of finishing that meeting. That's magnificent. That's productivity. That's gained efficiency. And it takes some skill to be able to accomplish that.
That's great. Joran, how has it made a difference for you as a facilitator?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, for the last 2 months now, we've been really having some in-depth conversations about how it's changing kind of the inner life of the facilitator. Um, and I could talk at length about some really insider baseball stuff, like how it affects your sense of time and your sense of space and your sense of silence and presence and movement and that whole thing, you know. But I think what's what's important to know on the time side, like Michelle said, like it can accelerate time in a way that is really productive. It can also decelerate or suck time in a way that is confusing and disorienting and dizzying. It can also accelerate and yield ideation to the point where it's unwieldy, right? Like that's where a skilled facilitator comes in really handy, because you can spend 5 minutes with a team of 30 people, and all of a sudden you've got them brainstorming ideas. And because they're in a virtual space, not having to wait their turn with stickies in their hand to approach the wall to put their ideas up, they're able to be in the exact same pixel area on a screen at the exact same time, all 30 of them, ideating at the speed of light, right? All of a sudden you've got 1,000 ideas, and you don't know what to do with that. So I think having a facilitator in the room or leading a session becomes really important. Somebody who's familiar with that time slip and how to control it and how to throttle it and how to move it, right? Drive it toward the objectives and surface the best ideas. And I mean that's where our team comes into play, I think, especially with something like V Suite.
Yeah,
But
and there's a wow factor to it. I mean, you mentioned it before.
yeah,
It
every
does provide a
time,
fun element.
anytime somebody asks at the end of a session, wow, how did you guys do that? It's like you did a magic trick.
Yeah,
And that's how we feel at the end of these virtual sessions. It's like it's magic,
it
because
is.
it is.
Especially with you and Michelle running the show, it's always magic. Before we wrap up, Michelle, I wanted to hit a little bit. You mentioned kind of these prep sessions, these one-on-one sessions heading into the virtual facilitation. It's part of our V Suite package. You get a one-on-one session with an innovation expert like Joran or Michelle. Typically, that's like an executive or a leadership session. And then that's followed by a full team session. So maybe a 2-3 hour virtually facilitated session, which includes the Mural tool that we've been discussing. So what, aside from the productivity and the efficiency and the wow moments that you guys have talked about, what really are the desired outcomes of having this? Who are the ideal clients that are out there? What are the type of outcomes that are you hoping to achieve for the clients that are utilizing this V Suite?
Sure. Thanks, Ben. So we have a core belief here at Ridge. Our belief is that everybody is an innovator. And when this crisis hit, what we knew was that this was the beginning of an age of great innovation. And there's a lot of, I would say, talk about it, or there's a lot of, playing to that phrase. Deeply understanding what that means, going into an executive session with a group of leaders who are needing to reset, re-enter, or reorient where their business sits within the new business climate, within the new environment, within potentially ongoing changes, is really the ideal client. It can be a team of 10 people like we worked with this week. It could be a company of several thousand, like several of other of our clients where we're working with a smaller team leading these growth initiatives, or these initiatives that are intended to take the company beyond where it is into a sustainable future state by leveraging new ideas. We define innovation as people who make money by turning failure into ideas that work. And I think now, sometimes failure is you've tested something and you failed. Sometimes failure is you set a strategy and COVID hit and completely blew up your plan. And well, you failed. So now you've got to reorient and move into a different direction. What is the direction that you're going to move into? How are you going to mobilize everybody in a week, 2-week, 30-day, 60-day, 90-day framework? For many, many companies right now, and I would say if there's a company that's asking, how do we focus on the next 90 days? What do I need to focus my team on over the next week? Do I need to be considering other business models? How do I test those business models? So, from a revenue standpoint or from a profitability standpoint, companies that are, anywhere from 3 million and above could probably benefit from these services. But they really are asking a question of what do we need to invest in our company with our talent? Do we need to move employees? Do we need to reorganize our employees into different work effort in order to move forward? Those are all executive decisions. You might have the same team, they might be doing different work. You could have the same clients, you could be offering different services. And so the very first meeting is really an orientation session. It's where we orient you, the executive team, around where you were, where it is that you need to go. We give you the tools to be able to consistently do that, because you've got to at least once a week say, okay, what's the new information that came in that we now need to make some micro pivots, keep the business going that we have, and build something that could potentially keep our sustainability going forward 6, 9, 18 months from now. But we don't have the answer yet as to what that is. It's why in our 7 truths of uncertainty, we say that your playbook is no longer relevant, because there's you have to create a whole new playbook for what's going to make your business successful going forward. And we help you make those decisions at the executive level so that your team can then do the work that they want to do. I want to say one thing, Ben, about teams. Okay.
Let's go.
Because I'm like fired up about it. I've been thinking about it all week because
you got her going now, man.
Because I've had an experience as a CEO, which has made me a better CEO. And I think that all the discussions that we've been having with executive leaders, some of them have been saying, my team needs to feel lucky that they still have a job. And I just want to say, as an executive leader, that when properly primed and directed in this chaos and in this uncertainty, like you have to feel like you own the storm, right? Like this is your storm to navigate. That you will feel lucky as a leader to have your team. And the B-suite orientation process and just the way that we work together, I said, I want you as an executive leader to wake up 1 week from now, 2 weeks from now, a month from now, and to be surprised because your team is throwing back at you the vision you cast, the strength that you gave them, the structure that you were able to provide them during this process, and that they lift you up. They don't hold you up, right? But they lift up the vision for you, and they show you a totally different landscape than what it was that you could have imagined. But they're the ones that are fueling the fire, and you see parts of your leadership and your team. That to me is, I think, as a leader with the V-suite, is it allows the CEOs to be CEOs. I mean, lots of discussions about CEOs saying, man, I just want to get in the weeds. You don't have to get in the weeds. You can be more of a leader. You can be more strategic. You can be more inspirational. You can be all the things that you ever wanted to be as a CEO, and give your team. People want to work right now. They want to contribute. They want to give their talents and skills and everything that they have. They want to show not just you, but the world and your clients just how awesome you are. Because yes, everyone knows having a job right now is a gift. And we can just set that on the table. What they want to do is they want to shine. And V-Suite allows the opportunity, I think, for us to give our teams the skills or the opportunity or the space to show just how freaking awesome they are. Like that's what I think. It's like, let me show you just how awesome I am. And our executive team yesterday had an emergency in the middle of the meeting. He had to pop off for an hour. And I said, don't worry, your team's got this. Mm-hmm. And he knew with certainty that his team had this. And whenever he came back, he was like, wow, my team had this. I can manage all of the chaos and the uncertainty that I need to because my team has this now. And they have proof and they have documentation and they have a plan and they have all the inspiration and they have all the focus and they have all the skills and all the talent. They have everything that he needs in order for his business to be successful. And that to me is probably one of the biggest outcomes for the V-Suite.
Well said. I'm ready to run through this virtual wall on Central Perk Coffee Shop that I'm sitting in. I appreciate everything. As always, I want to thank Joran and Michelle for joining us. Fantastic conversation. If any of you watching are interested in learning more about the V-Suite solution, about the Mural tool that we were discussing, you can find tons of information on our website. It's www.ridge.com. That's www.ridg.com. You can also go to our YouTube channel. There are videos about the V-Suite that show examples of the Mural tool that we were talking about. You can also go to our Facebook page and like and share our content. You can schedule a virtual coffee with Ben. We can hang out here in the virtual coffee shop, discuss the challenges that you're facing as a business leader. We'd love to have that conversation. And of course, Virtual Coffee with Ben will be back next Wednesday, 9 a.m. Eastern. I hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in and take care. We'll see you next time.
Woo!
Bye, everybody.